Good evening. Welcome to our debut episode of our YouTube channel. My name is Julie and I am Unconditional Art's owner. So I launched this so that I could not only teach some painting events for you to paint along, and also to learn some new techniques and maybe do some crafting, and I'm sure we'll have some outtakes so you'll get to see my normal goofy self. Tonight we are going to paint water. We're not going to do a full painting, but we're just going to start with some techniques of how to paint water, and from there we'll just keep on going. All right, let's start. So the first thing I do is I get my brushes wet so that the paint can glide easier across the paint. Water is usually my favorite thing to paint, so that's why we're starting with that. The top part, you can really do anything. I've done everything from doing galaxies to sunsets to just a nice pretty blue sky. So really, I'll leave that up to you. I usually start my water somewhere around the last third of the canvas. You can do this with any size canvas. If you want more water, more sky, it's really up to you. I usually have a few different colors of blue that I kind of merge together. Sometimes I'll even add different colors like green, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. It depends on what kind of water you want to have. And really, I just finish it all the way to the end, just going back and forth until I'm happy with the basic underlying color of my water. Usually I'll use a larger brush just to do this part, just because it covers a little easier, especially if I'm working with a larger canvas. Next, I'll use another flat brush. You can also use an angled brush. It just depends on what you're more comfortable with using. Again, I'll get that a little wet. And when you take your brush out of the water, the first thing you want to do is dab it on a paper towel. You don't want your brush to be so saturated with water, because otherwise you'll end up having drips, especially if you're using an easel and your painting's more vertical. So I take a little bit of white, a little bit of blue, until it's kind of like a really light blue color. And I just go back and forth all the way across. Now, generally, you'll probably want your water background to dry a little bit. But in this case, it's still starting to look like water. You can make some larger brush strokes as you get towards the bottom of your canvas. It really just depends on how much movement you want in your water. Shorter little strokes are going to make your water kind of blend together a little bit more. Larger brush strokes are going to make your seas a little bit more rough. From there, usually what I'll do is I'll take some white and I'll just dab my paintbrush on the tops, where I just want to have the light catch just a little bit. I don't go all the way across. I just pick certain areas where I really want to accentuate the waves. If you end up having a spot where you don't really like, you can just paint right back over it. I am using acrylic paint. For me, it seems to be a little easier. Watercolor would be a little different. You kind of have to work backwards a little bit with watercolor. Oils, I'm not super familiar with, but I have started to use them a little bit. So maybe as I become a little bit more stronger with my oil painting, maybe we'll have some oil painting in here as well. But I really just go back and forth to where I want my waves to be. until I am comfortable with how my water looks. Now, I'll add one more over here. So I'm pretty comfortable with where I like my waves to be right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the darker blue and I'm going to just go underneath just to kind of give some shadows. Another tip is when you are painting, you at some point want to get up and back away from your painting, because when you're up close, it looks a certain way. It might look like a mess to you, but when you back up from it, it's going to look completely different. It'll also help you to see where you need to maybe move something around or add something to it. You know, you might want to add a sailboat. Just keep adding colors until I am happy with how my water looks. Sometimes I get a little bit more detailed with my water, but for this, we're just going to do some basic brush strokes. And then if you want to go back and lighten it anytime. Now I'm using a flat brush, because again, I can just put some paint on my brush and just dab where I want it. Might go back and highlight, again, the waves. Don't be afraid to put too much color on either. So I'm going to flip on the other side. So this is just kind of some basic water. You can keep working at it to get more detail if you want. Generally what I do, especially if, you know, my sky's coming and meeting the water, to kind of break it up a little bit, I'll just take some white and go right along the horizon. Sometimes I'll put a mountain. You can put, like, you know, take some black paint and just kind of go along this way if you want to cover up where the water and the land meet, or the water and the sky meet. But generally this will help break it up. And again, I don't go completely across. I leave some gaps, because the light isn't always going to hit your water completely straight. Again, you want to put some more movement down here, you can. So for this is what we used for this side. I'm going to show you something to kind of make some calmer water on the other side. Again, you know, maybe this is a little darker. I'll take some white and some blue. Okay, so we have our basic background color of the water that we want. You don't have to get too detailed with, you know, is your colors blending, or your, you know, can you see the brush strokes? You might, if you use a wider brush, it would probably break up the brush strokes a little bit so you wouldn't see it too much. But for this, it's not really going to matter too much. So I'm going to rinse my brush. And again, I'm going to take some white. I'm going to use my same flat brush. And really, I'm just going to, not too much, I'm just going to go back and forth. Have some nice calm water. Especially if you have like a moon the top of your, or even the sun, and you want to get that sunlight, this is a good technique for that, is you just go back and forth. And you want the brush strokes to be seen. You don't want just blended in with your water. Again, not everywhere. Kind of go back and forth a little bit. And don't be afraid to put, like, you know, a brighter one here, or something over here. This is good for lakes, anywhere where there's like some standing water, it's good, and you just want to capture some light, or if it's just a calm day. I usually do this kind of water more when I'm putting like a sailboat or something just nice and calm, if I want more of a peaceful painting. And again, you can come up here and take some white and go across. And there's your water.